Tonight we've got Maddie Quinn coming in for a full body strength and power session. There's a couple of key lifts that we're focusing on around her lower body strength development, being a trap bar deadlift, but also we've got a few testing components as well, being an isometric mid-thigh pull, some jumps, and then a few other special pieces. Let's get into it. What we do in regards to the session flow is some basic monitoring and wellness. So what Mads is going to do, she takes her shoes off. This keeps it standardized for all athletes, regardless of who they are. The first one we look at is just a classic sit and reach. We do 2 reps. She records the first one as a bit of a memory because most people forget. Then does a second rep just to sort of see where we're at again. And then the second one is a knee to wall. So the beautiful thing about this is it is integrated with Lumin, our entire wellness and check-in standpoint. Now, if they are above or below their baseline, there's a nice simple QR code there that they would then scan to go do some correctives and then come back. For us, it's a big education piece in particular for the athletes. We don't have to then essentially baby them through that process. They get to learn a lot about their body, how they pull up and how they feel. From there, they go out onto the turf. On the turf, we have all of our TVs set up for the athletes during the sessions, which has their individual prep on there. So the first thing we look at here is a nice simple banded hamstring floss. It's a great neural exercise to help get some good range through her hamstrings. So this is one of my favorites. It's a combo exercise. We get a little nice hip flexor hold, and then for Mads as well, a bit of thoracic rotation. So we really try to keep nice and tall. From there, we go into a crucifix, which is just a nice lower back. Again, mobility, trying to open her up as much as possible. And then finally, just a nice simple hip extension drill, like a glute bridge. Is just a nice way to sort of tie it all together. Just bring your heels a little bit closer to your bum, Mads, great. From there, we go into a nice wall load and lift, and the second one's an A march. Good range in particular, and again, just based on all of our drilling, not seeing a whole lot of movement throughout lower back, so we're getting what we call our switching based qualities. Now, obviously we're not doing those fast, but we're just dropping those in here and there to make sure we're getting some nice good range front side. So something else that we like to do a lot here is test regularly. The reason being is that if we deem something important in an athlete's program, we want to test and track that as much as possible. So the first jump we're going to look at is a counter movement jump, and then we're actually going to go into an IMTP tonight, which is actually just dropped into the program as a way for us to ongoingly assess Mads' lower body isometric strength capabilities. 2, 1, go. Yeah, much better, good. So when we look at that, we just want to see from a trending standpoint, is it somewhat similar? Is it really above? Is it below? And then we can again, just take that in consideration as we go through the session. I'll set up the nick and grip. So we're about to do an IMTP. So again, for Mads, we haven't done one of these for a little bit just because of the draft combine prep. For Mads, a couple of key things we look at here is obviously her maximal force output, then her rate of force development, which is essentially how does she get there? And then particularly for me, just in some program considerations going forward, just what she's achieving at certain points in time on that force velocity curve. 3, 2, 1, go Mads, come on, go, 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 everything, go, come on, pull, 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 and rest, good job. Okay, great stuff. So the next block we go into with the programming is what we call our transfer block. So essentially it's our plyometrics, jumps and throws. The first one we're looking at is just our pogo. We've gone a loaded pogo variation for Mads just to have a little bit more force to interact with the ground. So then we go into a sled bounce. Something like a sled bounce is a great way to integrate a little bit more into something similar to the sport. Mads does a really good job here. It's a little bit longer ground contact. The key thing we don't want to see is as the foot hits the ground, we don't want to see that foot deform. So for Mads, the reason we love this one here is we take away the eccentric portion of the counter movement jump. So it's just concentric and massive hip extension. So for Mads, being in a ruck in particular, you don't get a whole lot of time to get nice and low. So this is just a great way to train some of those transfer and qualities that we're looking for that she might exhibit in a game. So what we're doing here is a trap bar deadlift. So for us, this is our key lift that we look at. So the one we're trying to get the most, I guess, adaptation out of for us. So we dedicate a fair amount of time to this. So 2 folds for Mads. Being a lower body bilateral knee dominant lift, it's a fantastic way for her to address that lower body strength, but also being a bit more angle specific, being a trap bar dead. So with Mads, and again mentioning before, her levers being quite long, it puts her in a really nice position to pull in a strong and also a safe position. Good, excellent. Great, a bit more speed, Mads, drive the hips through. Good. Grip the bar, good, pull, 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 good, and rest. Right, so it's just to make the most use of our time. We pair with some sort of accessory or supplementary movement. Typically it's gonna be around mobility, lumbo-pelvic based work, or in Mads' case, both of those things. What do we got? Bent half knee lateral flexion. So for Mads, this is again a great way to utilize some of her range. For AFL, obviously the lateral chain is really important for pretty much everything, catching, kicking, stepping, so on and so forth. So we look at some overhead work for Mads in particular. Good, right over, and then back over, you'll come smooth, yeah, so it's one smooth motion. Good. Great, now just don't let this hip collapse, so stay strong through that hip, good. Range, back over, nice. This one here is just a half kneeling called a hurdle swipe, or cars if you want to go that way. The big thing we want to look at here is we're looking at a true cars, which is hence why I don't call it a cars, would be a controlled articulate rotation where the hip joint is really locked and we're going through that range really, really slow. The way Mads executing is more of a hip like swipe, but again, regardless, it's just a great way to take the hip through some good range. The wall's fantastic for a bit of anterior load and help reinforces that trunk position. And for us, we go into a split squat next as well. So it's also just, again, reinforcing some of those postures and positions that we'll get in once we then go into that split squat. One of the cues that Mads gets sick of me saying a lot is I love for her to be stacked when doing any of her split squat based movements. So what I mean by that is her ribs stacked on top of her hips. The main reason for that being, again, is we just want to have that really good lumbo-pelvic control throughout the movement. So how we achieve that is by extending our back hip through, and then again, keeping ourselves relatively tall. But that comes from hip extension, not from leading at the chest. This is our bench pull. So this is for our horizontal pulling strength. Our pulling strength is super critical. Quite often we look at a lot of pressing variations and miss out on pulling. It's just a really great way to actually get some decent load in a bilateral pull, which is quite often hard, especially for, again, a taller athlete if we're looking at a bent over row variation. So these last exercises we call our supplementary lifts. So for Mads, we've got 3 exercises. Essentially, when we look at these for our athletes, it's a couple of things. It's our resilience-based options, i.e. like areas they need to work on, body armor, i.e. hypertrophy work, or a combination of the two. So for Mads, we've got a seated calf raise being the first lift. For us, a bent knee option is when one of those ones that is quite often hard to get, hence why a seated machine calf raise is so fantastic for us. From here, we've got a posture-based drill, which is a nice strong parallel press. Now again, parallel presses can be one of those ones that are a bit demonized. As long as you've got enough load, it's a fantastic drill option for that anti-rotation. In particular, for someone like Mads, a great way to control their center of mass where they are in space. Dead bugs, honestly, are one of my favorite low-level anti-extension trunk options. We get a little bit of a bonus hip flexion work as well. And again, for Mads with the plate, I just love to extend those levers and really challenge those end ranges. In particular, we're thinking AFL kicking strength and her ability to help jump as well in some of those shorter hip flexion positions. Nice, Mads. Mads has finished the session, so what we're going to quickly do is jump on Lumin and just have a quick look at how she completed the session, her workload, session RPE, loads, and a few other bits and pieces there. Going through here, if we do start to dive any deeper, one of the key things I always look at just to track over time is her key lift, or our athlete's key lift, and for Mads, that being her trap bar deadlift. So this chart is actually a fantastic way to help graph that. We actually had quite a significant drop a week ago because that was when she was actually at the draft. So when we're coming back into these loads, it's a great way to help track and monitor that we're not pushing too far, but also the fact that we're not undershooting either. And we can go through again, some of the other key things I'll look at might be something like a split squat as one of her accessory lifts, just again to make sure that she's actually trending in the right direction and not holding off a little bit with the load, which she obviously gave a bit of a nudge tonight.